Good morning. My name is Leon Hall. I'm one of the senior service techs at Raypak, and I'd like to introduce you to our 409. This is a BR 409 AENX. It is the 84 Professional. What we'd like to do today is show you how to access the spark igniter. We're going to show you how to remove the heat exchanger completely from the front. We're going to show you how to remove the combustion blower, how after that to remove the burner, to check the burner. We're going to show you the gas train, where you have the black and the brass orifice, the black being for the propane, the brass being for the natural. We're going to show you the PC board, how to hook that up, and hopefully make it a little more comfortable for you to operate our unit. Okay, before we get started into the actual disassembly of the heater, there's a couple things I'd like to show you. First of all, if you'll notice, we have our Raypak kneeling pad here, and you will be given the opportunity to win one of these during the class. I will be using that myself. At any rate, we have two items I'd like to show you. Number one, we have this booklet, Installation Operation Manual for the 84 Pro. Please read this carefully. It has all the information you need from the wiring hookups all the way through. Normally we find this something like this in our heaters, never having been opened. We encourage you to read thoroughly before you hook this heater up. It is not your atmospheric heater. It is not what you've seen in the past. Also, we have this little bag of PVC fittings here. If you notice our header, we have one header with an inlet on the bottom, an outlet on the top. So you can go inlet on the bottom, outlet on the top. These fittings here, you can glue these up onto the inlet outlet as such. There are two different size nipples in there. Or you can get a 12-inch MPT nipple from your local pool supply in the CPVC. Thread on one end, you can thread into this section here and use it for a slip fitting to connect to your water line coming in. Therefore, it gives you the advantage of being able to remove everything out from the front of the heater when you're trying to service it. Our igniter resides back toward the back of the burner here, or the blower, and we have two ports that you can access, 4x6 knockouts, one on the left, one on the right, where you can get in to get that igniter out without having to take the top of the unit off. All right, your igniter comes right out. We've successfully taken out the igniter. There's another thing that we might want to look at right now, and that is the heat exchanger itself, how to take that out. In order to take that heat exchanger out, we have to go from the top side. So this is an outside unit, thank God. We don't have a venting here. We're going to have to take the top off. We're going to take the front off the heater first. On this unit, to take the top off, there are two 5/16 screws way up in here. Take those out and take the wires off of the PC board. You'll have to get this cover off to access the screw up in here. Take those three screws out. On the back you have two flathead Phillips screws. After you take those off, the heater top should lift right off. One thing while we're at it here, if you notice, we've got these plugs loose. And we've had some discussion from people in the field about how you wire these in. It's a little bit confusing. This is a dual voltage blower up there, and we've got to hook it up to either 240 or to the 120. What you use here is all predicated on what you have hooked up here. Here we're either going to come in, as we are now, with our two blacks together, our two reds together. That will be a 240 hookup. If you hook these up, you will have 240 coming out of the black and the red with a white stripe. That'll be a 240 circuit. However, as you'll notice here, it shows for 120 hookup. The 120 hookup, you will take the red with the white stripe, and you'll take the white together to the neutral coming in. You have them hooked that way, you'll neutral come into these two, your L1 or hot coming into these two. This changes this circuit here, the black and the red with white, to a 120. If you have 120 coming in here, you want now to use this set of plugs, which is labeled 120. Now we have it successfully hooked up to 120. Okay, the next item we have to do is we have to take and loosen the bolts that secure the blower to the top. Okay, to take off the blower, not to take off the blower, but to loosen it from the boiler, we're going to take off the 4 7/16 bolts, one from each corner. Okay, the blower is loose from the heat exchanger itself, not loose from the plate, however, so it's still firmly attached. Now we're going to go into removing the heat exchanger itself. We're going to have to remove the data plate, all the bolts around here. We're also going to have to disconnect our flow switch. Okay, our flow switch is disconnected. Let's disconnect our element 1 and 2. We'll disconnect for our sensor. Now all of our electrical is disconnected. We should be able to just remove the nuts and bolts and pull it straight out. As we said, on the left-hand side, we're going to be taking out these 5/16 hex heads. You're going to have to also move the plug here, or the cap, I should say, to allow you to twist the data plate out. After the data plate, the next thing is all the bolts around the perimeter. Now that we've removed all the bolts from the stainless steel here, we've taken off our data plate. All of our electrical is removed. This should be able to pull straight out, heat exchanger and all. So let's give it a shot and see what happens. Now that our Helix heat exchanger has been removed, as you notice, we have the in-out header here. Everything comes out as a unit. No need to take out the blower, anything else. Over here, we may want to look at one other thing. This is your burner. Your burner sits right down inside the can. This is your burner. And if you have any problem putting this back in, you call Dave Scroggins. He'll come back out and he'll put this thing in for you. Okay, now that we've shown you how to pull out the heat exchangers for servicing, we're going to show you next about how to pull the blower and how to get access to the burner, which is below the blower. A little bit of advice before you start doing this is you notice you have all this tubing here, one coming from the gas valve, one going over to this air pressure switch, another one on the air pressure switch going to different points. You also have another switch that's not a part of the blower, but there's a lot of tubing in here. My advice is to label each one of these tubes before you take the blower out. If you forget, there's another easy way that I remember it. On the air pressure switch, we have a tube going to the black side of the air pressure switch here. It comes over to this point here, which is next to this black collar. So I will say black to black. The other side of this air pressure switch is white. It comes over to the same area, except it lands on this hose barb fitting that comes off the white collar. Now they both come off the white collar, but this is next to black, so it's black to black here, white to white here, and the gas valve hooks up right next to the air pressure switch here. So that's all you need to really know to get them back where they go, black to black, white to white in the valve. Another thing when you take off the blower, if you notice right down here, we have this area here, which two plates sandwiching an orifice. That is our gas our natural gas orifice or our propane gas orifice. We need to break this loose so we can take the blower out. In between the blower and the gas valve, we remove this orifice. This orifice is for, as I said before, natural gas. If you have a propane unit you want to change, this is the propane orifice. It's a black colored orifice. All right, taking off the blower now, we have another 4-bolt combination here. We're removed electrically. We got the bolts out. This thing should just come right out right now. We'll just give it a try. And we've successfully removed the blower. So we now have access to our burner below or to the blower to change the blower out if you have a bad one. All right, as I said before, we've taken the combustion blower out. If you notice, we've taken the bolts off of here and 4 7/16 hex head bolt nuts out there. The blower's out of the way. Now we can simply take this plate, lift it up, and we can get readily accessible to our burner. And there is your burner, straight out of the unit. You can also, at this time, inspect down into your heat exchanger for any sooting or any corrosion. And this is the burner on the 84 Professional. Stainless steel. Be careful of the gasket up here. We don't want those ripped. Again, this is a sealed combustion chamber. We want to be sure the integrity is left intact. Taking and putting this back in, just slide her back down, let her drop into place. Now we put the thing back together. Plate goes back over the top. And we want to bolt this unit back in. Now that we've got these bolts back in, we want to take these 7/16" nuts, set them on the 4 outside studs. After that, we'll be ready to put on our combustion blower. Drop these down over the 4 studs, and you can start putting on these 7/16" nuts. Now that we've got our combustion blower back in, we want to rehook up these tubings. If you recall, the one that sits on the black side of the switch, we had it over here next to the black inlet collar for the air. Nice and tight. The other side, next to the white section of that switch, we're going to bring it down here and hook it up to the hose barb fitting on our combustion blower next to the white collar. The only thing we have to hook up now is, once we get it hooked up, is our tubing from the gas valve, which we'll do next. If you notice, we have the natural gas orifice here that goes in between the plate here and the plate on the combustion blower. If you notice, there is a small dimple on the top of this brass orifice. That is always to be pointing upwards, not because it's going to work differently, but this allows the service tech to look at it and see which one he has in there. 1 dot is for the 409. If there's 2 dots, it's for the 259. Okay, if you notice, we have an O-ring. Be sure you have that O-ring back on there. All right, now that we've got our valve installed, we're going to attach the hose that goes from the gas valve to the blower. Okay, the next thing we're going to do now that we've got this unit back together, we're going to open the board up here. We're going to rewire the PC board. First of all, we're going to bring in our 24-volt power into our rocker switch here. Connect that up. Then, off of the rocker switch, we're going to take our 24 volts, the other side of the rocker switch. Doesn't matter which side you put this on. That now comes over to this 3-wire plug, which is your power, which is the 24, the common, and the ground. The next thing we want to do is our gas manifold, or gas plug, hooks right here. The next thing we want to do is our safety chain. The first one here, which is a 6-pin chain, hooks next to the gas plug. And then we have our 8-pin chain on the safety, which hooks to the left of that. The only other thing we have to do now is our sensor, which is the 3-wire sensor up next to the touchpad. And last but not least, the optional remote control. All right, with the exception of the high tension lead here, we now have the board completely hooked up. I prefer to hook this up after the board is installed from the bottom side rather than trying to force it in, because this does hang rather low. But this goes to the coil here, which creates 17,000 volts to our spark.